I'm very well. Is there an echo?
There is.
A little bit?
That's the go-to meeting. I have to turn it down when nobody's talking.
Okay. Well,
It cycles through on the go-to meeting.
that's a lot of management. All right. Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you all here. And I see that we have some presents online as well. That's very good. Let me quit this item. Thanks for your attendance here, where we hopefully can wrap up what our plan is going to be. That's my desired goal for the day. We only have 2 hours. Hopefully we don't even need all of it. So, let's begin. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
Would you please provide us a brief recap of exactly where we are at this moment?
The current shortfall after some cuts that we made on Tuesday is $1,908,700.
And would you go through those cuts again, so we're clear on that?
Best of my ability.
1 million.
Would you go through those cuts again,
908,
so we are all on the same page with those?
Thank you.
We added a $100,000 transfer from Parks. We removed a vacant position in juvenile. We removed a custodian position, removed 1.5 vacant positions in criminal, and changed a percentage split for 3 employees for scent to cover some of them. We cut $1,000 from permits and rent in the sheriff's office. We cut $27,720 from less than 5,000 info technology, also in sheriff.
I'm sorry, what was that amount again?
$27,720. $17,431 in vehicle expense. $8,481 in software license and maintenance. $13,400 in contracted services, and $150,000 in vehicles. In the jail, I decreased the insurance premiums to be in line with 2 pods.
What was that amount change?
Oh, sorry. $85,422. From the finance budget, we cut a laptop and printer, $4,329. Cut $1,250 from training and travel, and $27,500 from contracted services. And the commissioners, we cut the salaries 60%. In IT,
For $187,000.
$187,057 if you want to get.
Okay.
In IT, we cut $1,500 from supplies, $2,500 from software, $5,000 from training and travel, and $60,000 from capital outlay. In the clerk, we cut $8,000 from less than 5,000 info technology, and $4,000 from training and travel. In In the DAs, we removed 2 vacant positions totaling $304,754. And in the miscellaneous non-departmental part of the general fund, we cut $9,000 from contracted services.
And still have $1,908,000. All right.
Okay.
This is hard. I've looked, we've had 2 proposals brought forth that would help fill the revenue gap, or the budget gap from the revenue side. One would be to look at a sales tax. The other would be to create a public safety entity separate from the county. I think we have to look at both of those. And we have to continue to look for new ways, new thinking on how to fund the county. However, there is no way, in my view, that we'll never remove until we actually put something like this on the up for vote, whether that's going to be approved or disapproved. It will take time to do that. Things like that take a lot of planning. We don't know much about what it takes to implement either of those possibilities. A new public safety entity or a sales tax. There's no way we're going to be prepared to put those on the ballot in November of this year. It would be a push to get all the research done that needs to be done and lay the groundwork for educating the public what we're going to be voting about, even by next May. But let's assume that we do put one or both of those on. We can't do both. We have to do one or the other. I don't think we should do both. So we have to make that decision, and that's going to take research. But let's suppose that we can get it on next May's ballot, and one of those 2 measures is approved. Even then, we will not reap the benefits of a sales tax or of a new public safety entity. In the budget year 25-26. So not only are we faced with filling this year's budget deficit, this 24-25 fiscal year budget deficit, it's almost certain we would have to fill the 25-26 fiscal year budget deficit, even if we were able to get our voters to approve the sales tax or a public safety organization separate from the county. Great likelihood it would be the following year before we might not even get it in the 30s. So, two things that I kind of look at as principles. One, that we don't gamble on a future tax levy or a future creation of a new, because it won't happen very quickly, even if it does happen. And second, I think it's inappropriate to budget one-time revenue sources such as American Rescue Plan money, any of our other reserves, any of our other, they're there for a reason. So I don't think it's appropriate to budget one-time revenue sources to fund ongoing expenses such as payroll. I don't like where we are. I don't like about what I am to move that we do. But we have to make a decision, one way or the other. There are still some hurdles to get done what we've cut now. But let's assume that we can get over those hurdles. We still need $1,908,000. We can't do that without cutting personnel. So I want to put this to rest as hard as it is. My motion will be, or is, to cut, to close the second pod that we worked so hard to get manned, to enact all the provisions that Megan talked about this morning. For some of those, we have some work to do before we can officially enact them. And then see where we are and start once more going through a line by line budget, proposed budget review to see what we can find. I think everything needs to be on the table. Yesterday, we pretty much, were told, and this is right, that if we cut anything in our assessor department, anything in our finance department, anything much in our clerk's department, we lose our CAFA grant money. But we need to look to see if we can cut enough that we save more than what we would lose in CAFA grant. It's that type of thing we've got to look at. So what I move is that we enact the things that the measures or the ideas, some to increase revenue, one to increase revenue, most to cut costs, and decide to close the second pod that we just got open. And that is my motion. None of this will be final until we balance the budget. But we got to move ahead with something. We've been talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. So
I will
we have a motion.
second for discussion.
I have a motion and a second. I will open the discussion.
I've probably discussed it enough, so I'll leave it up to the rest of you. I have to tell you, not fun where we are. Not fun for me to.
If we, well, first of all, I want to first say that to me, when we have a possible path forward to maintain public safety at the levels that it is at minimum, and actually, I want to make some enhancements in the motion that I'm going to make later, but we're discussing Commissioner Sweet's motion right now. When we have located a means to be able to fill a gap that maintains public safety and in fact improves it, and we have the ability to do that for at least the coming fiscal year. And by my read, we have the ability, if we want to continue to engender the risk that is inherent to this strategy, and utilize the only resource that we have available to us in order to bridge that short-term gap, I believe that it would be irresponsible for us to not exercise that option. I believe that that closing the second pod in the jail would be an irretrievable error, a gross mismanagement of the people's will and the safety of the people of this county. I believe it would be an engagement of dysfunction and an acknowledgement that we're just going to continue to embrace the failed policies of the past. We have got to set a new direction for this county. And the only way that we're going to do that is by breaking free from the insanity that we've engaged before. Property taxes at the rate at which they are authorized statutorily in this county are unsustainable in light of continuing runaway inflation. The lines don't match. They continue to stray farther apart. And if we close that pod and lay off those deputies, if we lay off other patrol deputies, if we do not repair the breach in the district attorney's office, we are going to see a continued growth of criminal activity in this county that's going to further endanger the people who live here, who entrust us with protecting their safety, and that is job number one. So, public safety includes not only the sheriff and the DA, also the medical response teams run out of Coos Health and Wellness, highly valuable. The sobering center that will be opening. These are things that help to stem the tide before it becomes fully criminal, and then once it becomes fully criminal, then the sheriff and the DA step in, and they need to have the tools to do their job. One of those tools is the threat of detention. Without the threat of detention, you do not have justice. It's not possible. I will not vote for this motion. It would be absolutely reprehensibly wrong to do so, in my view. Commissioner Maine?
Okay, well, I'm really heartbroken about the levy not passing. It just, you can't have, excuse me. You don't know how much I appreciate the deputies, the DA's office, etc. Without law and order in the community, that's the number one priority for a community. And then having adequate roads to do commerce is second, and then everything else kind of falls away. But without law and order, you have chaos, you have vigilantes, you have all kinds of crap that we don't want. However, In my perceived opinion, our levy was promoted wrongly by certain ones. He's not here today, Mr. Castleman. I blame him personally for claiming we had excess funds all over everywhere in the budget. We don't. That's why I suggested at least saving a deputy out of our commissioner salaries. There isn't funds out there. I mean, there's a little bit in the ARP and there's a little bit in the forest fund. Okay. But if you use that now, you have an even greater deficit the following year. That's not cool. Are we going to be with just the sheriff and just the DA? It's not possible. I called some of my friends last night who are in large timber company, people who buy and sell timber. There's no happy outlook for the timber market in at least one, probably they think 2 years at least. So our income from our county forest will be down. We tried to sell one the other day and we got a offer of about 50 or 60% of what we offered it for. Anyway, they don't think the market's going to come back for a while. So if we start not selling, and that's the reason we did the 5-year average, we need that 5-year average to try and hold on a minimal amount, because without that, that multi-millions of dollars that are figured in automatically every year into the general fund budget is going to go away, or at least dramatically reduced. We've got gas pipeline. We have a repair to fix right now just south of Coquille. We don't know how much that's going to be. We already have spent $4+ million on 4 fixes already in the last couple of 4 years. That thing is become an albatross. We get 0 revenue from it for maintenance of it, excluding major repairs. If we spend the ARP now and we spend what's left in the Forest Trust Fund, we don't have any money to fix the gas pipeline. Crap. Sorry about that, but it's the way I feel. Just yesterday, and then we have the crazy runaway inflation with costs going up, and I know employees want to at least keep sort of even with the cost of inflation. They haven't. None of us have, but minor raises, they have agreed to, just minor things, or no raise in some cases, like in the SO, to try and, keep it 100 beds at least. But then we get skyrocketing costs all over, and the big one is insurance. Not only medical, but regular liability stuff for all the buildings and the vehicles and all that stuff. We got, yesterday, had the happy news from the DA that if public defenders aren't found for a person in incarceration accused of a crime within 7 days, we now have to let them go. Imagine that. And the criminal, the Public Defenders Commission, State of Oregon appointed group appears, my personal opinion, to be totally dragging their feet. Is that on purpose? I don't know, but it doesn't sound good.
It's not related to the budget.
I got that part, but if we have a bigger jail, is it frivolous just to catch them and let them go in 7 days? That's the part I'm getting at. I mean, that's just why have a sheriff and why have a jail at that point if we're just gonna have to let them go every 7 days? Can we recatch them? I don't know. This is just nuts. Oregon's not the Oregon I grew up in. Then we got possibility of a taxing district or sales tax, donations, etc. Both have to go to a vote of the people of Coos County. I have not heard anything about a plan to implement either one, which is huge in sales tax, trying to get all the businesses and who's gonna pay for redoing their computers and all that kind of stuff and doing the collection. They're gonna have a separate department for collections, on and on and on. This is gonna take years if it even gets approved by the people. And we don't even know if they're amenable to that. So we don't have a whole lot of choice. I don't like it at all. It's kept me up for the last few months, over and over and over, thinking, trying to get solutions, etc. And we have people out there on the internet and various places, well, you need to do something. Okay. I've been racking my brain, going to Supreme Court, all kinds of stuff to find some more funds, but guess what? None of those folks have a viable solution. Maybe long term, not in the short term at least. So it's heartbreaking for me. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to come back and hit another, address a couple of points that have been made here. First of all, the tax swap that I have been discussing, just to recap for anyone who is unaware, what we're talking about is the implementation of a 2% retail sales tax, excluding unprepared foods and pharmaceuticals. And that tax would generate between $20 and $25 million a year for the county. It would be inflation tracking. It would not be regressive like a property tax is. And it would continue to support county services at current levels, which I'm not saying there is zero inefficiency in this county. I am saying that there is hardly any that I have ever been able to identify. And so maintaining services at current levels is, I believe, in the best interest of the people of this county. In exchange for that 2% sales tax, we would be able to levy the county's permanent property tax rate of $1.08 per thousand at zero. So you would have zero county property tax levy. The special districts would still be on your property tax bill, but that $1.08 per thousand would not. It would be replaced entirely by the 2% sales tax. The effect there is that we transfer a substantial portion of the burden of supporting the general fund from property owners to tourists and transients, and that is a very, very significant feature. As to the likelihood of passage of something like this, I'd like to contrast it with the special district levy. If we were to make the sheriff's department a special district, that would have to go to a vote to the people. The rate would be $2.60 per thousand assessed value that we would have to garner from that levy, from that special district levy. And the people just voted down a 98-cent levy on their property tax by 60 to 40. Do we really believe that a special district would pass in this county? That's asinine. That's ridiculous. It'll never happen. However, I'll tell you this. When I look at the tax swap and talk to people about it, obviously, our public safety levy went down 60% to 40%. In 2020, Donald Trump took 58% of the vote in this county. I see you shaking your head back there, sir. It's true. It's true. You can go back and look at the statistics and you can shake your head and disagree, but the fact is there was 58%. So those are nearly identical numbers. As I go around and I talk to people on both sides of the aisle about this topic, what I find is that there's great support. Almost everybody that I talk to is in favor of this idea. Conservatives, liberals, all of them. Most people are in favor of this idea. My assertion is that 60% who voted against the levy are almost entirely the same 58% who voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Not entirely, but largely. So what that calculates in my mind is an extremely high likelihood, based on the feedback that I have gotten from these groups of people, that both conservatives and liberals would majority vote in favor of the tax swap. It makes total sense. It benefits everybody. There's no reason not to vote for this thing if you have any desire to see this county go forward on a productive track that preserves the rights of people, that protects the interests of people, that sees justice done in this county. And so there's one other point that I want to make. Actually, a couple other points. One is, with the tax swap and the implementation of the sales tax, yes, it would take time and effort to get that implemented. There is no doubt. And I am under no illusions that we would be able to actually get that done and start seeing revenue by the next fiscal year. And so, yes, it is correct. In 25-26, I would anticipate we would need to additionally support the general fund with monies from the timber fund. Now, I haven't laid out what my budget proposal is for this year, but I'm here to tell you that in no wise are we talking about depleting the forestry fund. No. There's $11 million in there. The proposal that I'm going to have today, when I make my motion, is going to include only $894,000 out of the timber fund. That means that there's a whole bunch of money left in there that we could aim to use, plan to use for the 25-26 fiscal year until we see the revenues begin to flow from the sales tax. Another point I want to make about the tax swap implementation, the sales tax implementation, is yes, there is a cost to businesses to do that. My proposal for the sales tax is going to be that merchants are allowed to retain 5% of the revenues they collect in order to help cover their costs. I'm not saying that that covers all of the costs. I'm saying that that is something to be able to help them, help merchants not bear the full burden of collecting that tax. There will be county staff required to be added to administer this program. No doubt about that. We have to build that into the cost. But if we collect, even if we only collect on the low end, let's say $18 million comes in sales tax, then it costs, by then it'll be $8 million to run the jail. So we have $10 million left. $6 million will no longer be coming in on the property tax. That's $4 million left. That is above and beyond what we're currently seeing today. That replaces, is that silenced now?
That was me.
That replaces the, I completely lost track of where I was. This is why I like ringers and stuff off in the room, because it's very distracting. If your phone ringer is not disabled right now, please do so at this time. That leaves, so we're still 4 million above what our current revenue is, and that would replace the average that's been incoming from the county forest for years and years. So it makes total sense in every regard, from my perspective, to pursue that course, which is bold and incorporates a little element of danger. I acknowledge it. But we have to do something different. If we keep doing the same thing again, we're going to be right back here again, and this county is going to fail. It's going to fail. We can't do this. If this was a business, the executives should be terminated if that's what happens. It's absolutely unconscionable to consider closing that jail pod and laying off sheriff patrols. It's completely the wrong approach when we have such an amazingly viable possibility in front of us that we can engage with vigor, with energy, get a booth at the county fair, create informative paperwork, get county employees who are on board with this idea or anybody else to staff that booth, and start spreading this word and marketing it, educating people with great energy and industriousness and creativity. And we can get everyone to understand what's at stake, and we can pass this thing. Could we do it in November? I don't know. Maybe we have to put it on the ballot in November as an advisory question. Maybe that's all we have time to do. And just to humor the other commissioners, if we wanted to do that, I would be willing to put the special district on as an advisory question as well. Let the people choose between those two advisory questions. Which one do you like? I know what the answer will be. So anyway.
May I have one more comment?
Absolutely, you may.
Thank you. I'm not saying by any means that I'm against looking for new revenue sources. What I'm saying is that we can't afford to gamble that a tax increase of any kind or reorganization of any kind will be passed. And we've got 2 years that we have to fund ourselves. Instead, during those 2 years, we should go ahead and do this. Now, we're talking about Manning, we're talking about, there's going to be 2 years of uncertainty. I am sure that during those 2 years of uncertainty, and the uncertainty will be whether our county will pass another tax or a reorganization or a new governmental institution. And I would guess that a lot of people are going to have job opportunities. We have good people, they will have job opportunities. And they won't wait around for a year or two to see whether or not our citizens pass an additional tax levy of any sort or an additional governmental entity. If you don't know today that you're going to have, the county will have enough money a year from now or 2 years from now to pay your salary, you're going to be looking for new jobs. And I think that's going to happen, regardless of what we do today. So maintaining the second pod is an uncertainty anyway, and you look puzzled. But believe me, there should be no puzzle to this. I know that if I were young and had a family, and I wasn't sure that my employer was going to be able to make payroll next year, I would start looking for a new job. And that's going to happen to us anyway. So just because if we were to dig into our reserves, keep the county open as is for another year, we're still going to be losing people. So anyway, with that, I have nothing more to say. I would like to ask that we call for the vote.
I'm not ready to call for the vote yet. Thank you for your request. There's a qualitative difference between summarily closing a jail pod, slashing the sheriff's department, plus making all these other cuts with the same uncertainty out 2 years. What's the difference going to be? I don't understand what the difference is. There is no difference. Well, there actually is a difference, and it's this, that not every person thinks the same way. Not every person makes their decisions by the same processes of logical determination. Some people may say that, oh, the county doesn't have a plan 2 years from now, I'm going to go look for a job today. Honestly, if that's the mindset, then I would say maybe you should go look for another job. That might suit you better. My belief is that any attrition due to that kind of thinking is certainly going to be number one, more gradual than the summary slash of this budget right now. And it also will not engender a broad discontent and distrust that the county knows how to manage its affairs. I'm absolutely opposed to that idea. I completely disagree. I couldn't disagree more. And so with that, I'll open to other comments. Does anyone have a comment that they would like to make in this discussion on the motion that's on the table?
You have some online comments.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was looking for that and I didn't see it. I'm not seeing it, but Mr. District Attorney, welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Main spoke about the federal court order that we have to release unrepresented defendants. That's a small percentage of the people that are in the jail right now.
Good.
We have 81 people. I looked at the alpha list this morning.
Yeah.
We have 81 people in custody. And you take the 11, that knocks it down to 70.
But one of those is a rapist and a multiple sex offender.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
but the thing I want to point out is if you close the pod, you're going to be releasing 21 more people. You
Yeah.
guys are.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to bring this up is because on social media, the sheriff and I are taking the heat for the cuts that are coming. We're being blamed for the cuts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I understand that, but that's why I wanted to stand up and say something this morning, is
Thank you.
because I am being blamed for these cuts, and the sheriff is being blamed for these cuts. And frankly, I don't want to take the blame.
You don't deserve it.
So, back in 1990 when I came to work here, before I left Grants Pass, the church we went to, my pastor asked us to speak before we left. And I asked him, what do you want me to talk about? And he says, well, since you're leaving, you can tell us what we need to hear without fear of repercussions. I'm a lame duck, so maybe I can say some things. I've kept my mouth shut for years. But here's some thoughts I want to throw out. Number one, if you close the pod, you're throwing away the money that you have invested in getting those deputies trained. If you lay them off, you lose that money. If a solution is found and you are bringing back the pod again, you're going to spend that money again.
Right.
If you don't lay them off and they decide to leave, as Commissioner Sweet pointed out, if they go to another agency, that agency is obligated to pay back to the sheriff at least a percentage of the cost of their training. Okay? So you lay them off, you don't even get that money. If they decide to leave on their own and go to another law enforcement agency in the state, then there is a potential that you can get some reimbursement. So, here's, again, going to be throwing away some dollars. As I've mentioned, close the pod, criminals are going to go free, the revolving door is going to continue, crime is going to continue, property is going to be stolen, lost, or destroyed, persons are going to get hurt. And the cost to the citizens, in terms of property loss and what have you, is going to far exceed, in my estimation, the money you're going to save here today.
That's right.
The other thing that I understand what John is saying and what Bob is saying about this is money in reserve, we need to hold on to it. I understand that. But the average public citizen does not. And you guys can explain it to your till you're blue in the face in these meetings that we can't touch those reserves because of this and that and the other. But it is my opinion that as long as you have the amount of money you have in reserve right now, there will never be a resolution in this county to our problems by asking the voters for more money. They're just not going to go for it.
That's right.
So, making the cuts today is based on an assumption or a fear that we will not have a resolution this year or next year. Now, maybe we won't. Maybe we will. If you go with that assumption that there will be no resolution, or the fear that there will be no resolution, and you make the cuts today, you're going to be in a position, if there is a resolution, of, okay, now we've got to spend more money to get us back to where we were before. And it's going to take a longer, look how long it took Gabe to get to the 100-bed jail. If we go back to the 49-bed, we're going to be in this, it's going to take years if you find a resolution next year to get back to where we are today. I've always been told, as long as I've been here, that the forestry fund and these other funds that we've been talking about, they're here for a rainy day. Well, we're in a monsoon. I realize that if there isn't a resolution, there's going to be hell to pay. But what you're doing is going to cause great harm to the criminal justice system in Coos County. And it's not going to be my fault, and it's not going to be Sheriff Fabrizio's fault.
That's right.
And, when people call me and say, what the hell are you doing, Paul Frazier? I'm going to refer them to you. So, that's all I've got to say on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Sheriff, you wanted to say something?
I'll be brief. I think most of the
talking points I had have already been stated. I won't reiterate.
Good.
I guess a couple things I want to say. 2 years, if we close stuff down, is going to turn into 17 years, like it did on this last time since the last layouts. We're just now, honestly, getting back to stability. Sheriff Zandy did a great job of building it up from what it was, and over the last 18 months, we've hired 22. But I think the biggest point I have is that they're still there. Guys are still there. We haven't lost any deputies. I got a text yesterday from one who got dropped off in Douglas. But as of right now, they're kind of holding their breath, waiting for this decision, but they're still there. They still have confidence that that job is there. For now. And I think that if there were some confidence going forward that there is a plan, whether it's in the tax swap or district or further development in the county, I think the county could really use Cabela's or something. I think it'd be really popular. I think they would stay. I think even if we bought ourselves a year with planning on the horizon, that's what they've done so far. They stayed while we furthered the levy, tried to. It failed. But they're there. They want to be here. Even the one that I was texting yesterday, we worked over a year, he and I, to get him just in the door. And then after that, he's still in training. He doesn't want to leave. It's breaking his heart too. It's breaking my heart. Consider these people brothers and sisters. And I know you guys are having a hard time with it too. It sucks. But as of right now, it's the 11th hour, but I don't think it's too late.
Thank you, Sheriff. Is there anyone else in the room that cares to render a comment during this discussion?
You got Rich on
I'm sorry, what?
that. You got Rich on that.
Rich Burkholder, can we please mic him up?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Good morning, Mr.
It's
Burkholder.
working. Excellent. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak. I came in a little bit late on the meeting. I apologize. I wanted to be down there in Coquille today, but I was shorthanded because of employees. It even happens to the private business. We have to deal with that. Yesterday, I had the privilege of assisting the sheriff's office in talking to deputies, moving some personnel around to the dunes from patrol. And, you know, I have to say, number one, the command staff you have at the sheriff's office is absolutely amazing. They have come around, they have a strong integrity with the community. The folks that are working for Sheriff Fabrizio respect him. They respect his command staff. I know that we mentioned about employees leaving through the year. I've been in law enforcement and I know the structure of the Coos County Sheriff's Office. I will tell you, the command staff has worked hard to retain who they have. The deputies that are working there are probably some of the best deputies I've seen in years when it comes to working by themselves out here in the community, and they do work by themselves. There's a lot of activity that they have to deal with by themselves, which is very dangerous for the officers. I heard 2 days ago, Sergeant Claiborne talk about the response and the danger that it puts the deputies in if we cut deputies and cut costs. I don't think you're going to see deputies leave if we take a step out, some type of emergency act to retain those deputies for a year to get them what they need later on. Now, I've also heard about the taxes, the 2% swapping with the property tax. It's a viable offer to a solution. At the same time, I've seen a solution of saying we have to have a tax district. One thing I've heard in this last election, number one, not all the people in this county spoke. The turnout was extremely poor. And I apologize on our behalf as citizens for that. because it's our responsibility to make sure people get out there and vote for the county to support you guys. You guys you've been placed under a thumb. You have a lot of stress on you. The other day, you gentlemen talked about doing a pay cut. I know that has to go before the budget committee, and I'm going to voice my opinion on that. It's a great gesture, and that shows your kind heart. It shows the heart of the commissioners wanting to do the best they can do. However, that is just a spray bottle on a brush fire. It's not going to make an impact. You might keep one deputy, but that, sir, is a dangerous thing in the sense that, number one, you guys, we need to keep you up to par. We need to keep the commission board up to par to run this facility. With that being said, a taxing district, I've heard people aren't going to vote for that. I disagree. The reason I disagree is because a taxing district would then be dedicated to the sheriff's office as an independent governing body run by basically the commissioners. Ultimately, it comes down to the general fund, and people want to know in this last election, the main thing that I heard, because I'll tell you, I supported the levy. I went out and I talked to businesses, I talked to the community. Number one thing they said, how do we know that the money's going to be guaranteed to the sheriff's office? Number two thing they said, how is this going to help us living out here on the street when it's a jail pod and it's more district attorneys? They don't understand that the process of retaining the prisoners, the process of having the facility to house them, is going to make it easier for the road officers to do their job. When you turn a gentleman loose or a lady loose who has violated the law, one, you demoralize the department, two, you demoralize the county, and three, you basically have told the criminal, we don't care. Although we do care, that's what it shows them. And gentlemen, this is a state of emergency, basically. Sometimes we have to do stuff that is ugly that we don't like. Sometimes it'll put us in a position where we might lose our elected position for making the wrong decision. But sometimes you have to make a hard decision. As a father, sometimes I have to put my kids in that position. As a supervisor for the sheriff's office, I influenced a lot of people's livelihoods, but I had to make the decision that was best for the department and best for the community who is asking for help. The community is asking for safety, but they don't want to vote for it on a tax levy. The main thing was they want it dedicated. They want the funds dedicated to the sheriff's office. And that's something that has to be in place. I know it's a hard decision for the three of you. I commend all three of you for your job. I'm going to commend the sheriff and his command staff that are there. I know them. Folks, this county has got quality law enforcement. You do not want to lose it. If we don't do something drastic, you're going to lose it. It has taken a long time to put those officers back in place. I moved back into the county in 2006. I saw what happened in 2007. I have personally had to deal with stuff helping the sheriff's deputies up here in the evening when they've been by themselves. I've taken it upon myself to get in my truck and drive over and be in the area where those officers are at as a citizen to support them, not as a radical. I want to clarify that. Because of my experience in law enforcement, I knew I had those officers' backs. The officers that are in that department are quality officers. And we have to do something at this point as an emergency to keep them. And gentlemen, I'll tell you right now, the pay cut for you, it still has to go before the budget committee. I respect that, but I don't think that's the right process. However, as an elected official, if I was in your position, and I'm not, I don't want to be, I'm a citizen. I want to help you. I want to help the county. I want to support the sheriff's office. I will tell you that sometimes you have to make a decision that's going to jeopardize or make you think that you're being jeopardized as being a commissioner in this office. But you know what? When you stand strong, there's people in this community that are going to stand behind you. I know that's not a viable answer to what you guys have been discussing, but I wanted to give you my point of view as a business owner and somebody who supports the sheriff office very adamant. We do our best. Right now, the sheriff's office did not even have enough money to buy radar guns. There was complaints in the community that the side-by-sides in Lakeside were going too fast. I'm not taking a praise, but I will tell you, my company decided to buy 3 radar guns for the deputies on Dune Patrol for that reason. Everybody was arguing up here on Facebook. Oh, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? You know what? The people got to put their mouth in a place where they want it. They're going to have to show that they got to support them. I did. We bought them equipment. I made a deal with Polaris when I signed on as an outfitter. Every 2 years, I want a new Razor free of charge. Right now, we're allocating another new Razor this year for them. We're waiting for the powers to be at Polaris to finish signing off. It's a done deal. That's another piece of equipment. That's $40,000 worth of equipment that they're going to get for free. And it's because we put our neck on the line as citizens to support them. One of their side-by-sides is in my shop right now. I am not charging the sheriff's office to do maintenance on that vehicle. Why? Because I'm helping them try to save money to keep that department running. We've put new equipment on their side-by-side that has been running and has gotten old. I'm blessed to be able to do that. I made myself a promise when I left retirement of the sheriff's office in Colorado that wherever I lived, I was going to stand 100% behind our law enforcement officers. And folks, this is an emergency situation. This county cannot afford a cut at all. You do not understand. Gentleman who is the chief of police of the University of Oregon, I was his training officer years ago. This week I talked to him. He talked to me about the problems that the university has had. He had a lot of people on the campus that were not leaving. They tried to negotiate. They tried to work it out. He warned the administration of the campus that if you don't take care of it quickly, it's going to get out of hand. And it did. He contacted OSP. He contacted the Sheriff's Office of the Valleys. He contacted large agencies, Eugene, Salem, Portland, Springfield. Not a one of them would respond as an interagency cooperation to help him. It got down to a word from a union representative that came to the chief and said, I've got guys to call. Those guys that he said, and he did contact them, were the sheriffs of the outer communities out away from the metro areas. That's like Coos County, Curry County, Josephine County. And you know who came to his help and his response? They said, no problem, we'll be there. That's the ability Coos County has. You're not going to have backup if there is a major emergency in this county. You might have OSP step in with a few officers. But folks, the sheriff's office has done everything they can do with what they have. If you cut it, you're not going to get it back, period. And I know that's a hard thing to say. I know it's not a big decision, and you guys have a lot to make up. You have a lot to decide. Mr. Sweet, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Maine, all three of you, I commend you. Please do the right thing. Step out on the limb and save this community. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you, Rich. We appreciate your comments. To follow up on Mr. Burkholder's comments, I would like to restate that in the tax swap, one of the key components of it is an absolute tie. As long as that sales tax remains in effect, it will be absolutely tied to a minimum jail capacity and minimum sheriff patrols. So I'm not prepared to state what those numbers are, but obviously we cannot operate adequately with fewer than 2 pods, and even that really is marginal for other detail reasons. But, so the definition of what those minimums is needs to be defined, but, or determined yet. But those would be essential components of such a proposal. Counselor, were you indicating you wanted to pipe in on something? No, you're just stretching a little, thank you. All right. As a point of discussion, I'm going to pre-frame, I assume that Commissioner Sweet's motion is going to fail. That's my assumption here, and my fervent hope. It's not personal, Commissioner Sweet. It's just business. But as part of the discussion on this motion, I feel it would be profitable to pre-frame what my motion will be, assuming his motion fails. My motion is going to be, beginning from the treasurer's current number of 1.908 million. I'm going to speak in rounds, not in exact dollars, okay? 1.90.
Mr. Chair, there's a motion on the floor. You can't do that procedure. You have to wait till it's either approved or denied, and then you can go on to the next one. Respectfully.
Is that accurate, Counselor?
Yep.
For your understanding of Robert's rules?
Mm-hmm. So,
Well, I sure would like to be able to articulate
I know,
what
I know.
the next option is going to be,
Okay.
but
I also have one, by the way.
in deference to protocol and procedure and running by the rules, then
Did you hear what I said too?
yes, I did hear what
Okay,
you said.
all right.
Would it be
Commissioner,
easier to
thank you.
withdraw the motion so we can put other motions on, explain other motions, not put them on the floor?
Okay, all right.
I'll do that, so that,
I would second
You're-
your withdrawal.
All right, very good.
Okay, now we're
The
cleared up.
motion, the motion has been withdrawn. The table is
now I want
clear.
to hear the other two proposals.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweet. I appreciate that. So, you know what? Deferring the prerogative of the chair, Commissioner Maine, in light of the fact that you've informed us that you have a motion as well, why don't we hear that?
So it's a modification of Mr. Sweet and your proposal. I propose that we put on the ballot both alternatives for November 12th. We fund fully the second pod in the DA's office until, let's say, the end of December. If one or the other passes, then we could continue on to fund, knowing that hopefully it would pass in the spring. However, if both fail, we would have to have a supplemental budget to where we cut out what we are talking about today. Because they've spoken again and said no and no. So if they say yes on one, or even, heaven forbid, yes on both, that would be amazing. Then we'd have to make a choice of which one to put forward. But we don't know really what the public, because there were so few people voted this spring, and there was a lot of misinformation put out there to people, that if we have a vote this fall and it passes, fine, then we go on. If we don't, then we're gonna have no option to make the cuts. And that just kicks the can down the road, I know, for another 6 months, but at least we would have a path to follow.
And Commissioner, when you say put them both on the ballot, I assume you mean as advisory questions only?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And then If one or the other passes, then we put that one on the May ballot. If they both pass, put them both on there and see what happens. And we would make a motion to take which one got the more favorable votes.
What would it cost to do a special election so we don't have to wait until November?
I have no idea. Is the clerk here?
No, but the number that comes to mind is something around $50,000 to $60,000.
Yeah, I don't want to spend it much.
I don't.
It's, money's so tight now that,
That's from. I'm seeing online that 10,000 is what she said yesterday. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate, but maybe it is. All right. So since that was not actually in the form of a motion,
Well, it can't be in the form of a motion.
we're just discussing
yeah,
what
we're just
my thought would
discussing.
be.
Mr. DA, comment?
I was just gonna say, if you hold a special election, your voter turnout's gonna even be worse than you did in the primary. If you really wanna get voter turnout, put it on the November ballot. It's
Right.
a presidential election,
Right.
people will be voting.
Good point.
You'll get a better representation from the community if you wait till November.
The
Right.
last
Good point.
presidential was in the mid 30,000 voted. It was only 18 this spring.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think you'll have a better percent.
Then we'd really know.
Yes, that's why I would wait till November.
Somewhere on the 13th of November, then we meet and go hooray or ugly.
Captain Sanborn?
Respectfully, I would suggest that we put both of the actual measures on the ballot in November. If we do an advisory vote, then we're waiting too long. And I mean, we're gonna run out of money before. So
Okay.
that's what I would suggest.
That
Right,
does have
that
merit
creates-
because trying to implement a sales tax in that short a time is probably
Yeah,
impossible.
We can't get it done.
Well,
We can do a levy or a taxing district, but doing a sales tax from May through the 1st of July, that's impossible.
additionally, framing both of those questions into an up or down, yes or no vote, it creates a dynamic in the electorate that doesn't give them a clarity of choice. Anytime you see two different approaches to the same problem on the ballot, it confuses issues, and you end up with a vote that's an inaccurate assessment of what people actually really think. I've seen that over and over again, and while I understand where you're coming from, I think that ultimately that would be an unproductive choice. We're putting both questions out as advisory questions. That's a whole different kettle of fish, and that would be a valid assessment of the people would understand, do you want this one or this one? And that can be framed
Or
up.
neither.
Or neither, correct.
Or both.
Chair, I'd like to speak a little bit to the process. In response to Sanborn's comments, not only could we not develop a measure for the special taxing district or the sales tax in time for the November ballot, but the process is likely much longer than that. And so I just want the board to be aware that, let's start with the taxing district. Creating a special taxing district is more complicated than just a typical levy, right, where you're just going out for a certain amount of percent per thousand, as we've done before. It's more complicated because you're creating a new entity, you're establishing how that entity is going to run. There's my understanding is it can take 2 years to stand up a district. And for a sales tax, it's never been done before, and it would require the county standing up an entirely new tax system. We would have to, it would be a brand new thing, and would take, I can only estimate, a few a few years at least to really see a return on that. So I just want everyone in the room to be aware that the timelines we're talking about here are longer than just, you know, getting something on the November ballot and seeing money in the next fiscal year. We're talking longer term with these ideas.
Thank you, Counselor. Nobody's asserted that we'll see revenue next year, but, you know, point stipulated that there is a process to be engaged. Certainly, every single effort would be made in this scenario to expedite this process. And
Also, with advisory, both of them this fall, we've paid for in the past surveys. My gosh, they're expensive.
yes,
30, 40, 50, 60,000 bucks for a survey. And I frankly don't see the value.
well, you don't hit nearly as many people.
No,
Either.
you don't.
Right. So advisory ballot questions are powerful tools, and that's why part of the reason we saw such opposition to the last cache of them proposed. But anyway. All right. Well, I think I would like to discuss what I have on my mind. So beginning from the 1.908 million number that we received from the treasurer this morning, I believe that it is untenable to put the DA's office in a position where they continue to run 2 attorneys short. And I believe it is also untenable for the sheriff's department to continue with less than a minimum 3 on patrol 24/7. So we're talking about 2 additional district attorney positions to be filled and 4 additional sheriff patrol positions to be filled.
How many?
4. So the 2 DAs, I believe you threw out a number of 304,000, is that correct? 300,000, okay.
That's what Megan said.
Okay. Somehow I've got 304. Let's just leave that in place
I
for
got
now.
304,750.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And the 4 deputies would cost us right around $500,000, correct, Sheriff? Okay. So that would put us at 2.712 million.
You have to put the cars back into, or is that jail?
For patrol.
Yeah. You're more like 160, aren't you?
We can probably stick with we'll be okay. Give up cars.
Okay.
Okay, so let's roll right now with my total of 2.712 million. 2.713 really. So my thought is that if we that in light of the prospects from my perspective of the tax swap, we can afford to clear out the timber reserve fund of 1.317. That will bring us down to a deficit of 1.394, actually 1.395. We throw in $500,000 from ARP funds, which I will remind must be expended by the end of the year. This year, that's
No,
Has to be allocated.
okay, has to be allocated by the end of this year.
That reduces them to how much?
That will bring it down to that'll bring it down to about 800,000. Okay, and so with that $500,000 added in from ARP, that will bring us down to 894,000. And that 894,000 we could transfer from the regular timber fund and have less than a 10% impact on that fund. That's while adding 2 DAs and 4 patrol deputies. And admittedly, we're still having to work with all these other departmental cuts that we've already spoken about. That's where I'm seeing this go. I won't repeat all my comments about my perspective on the likelihood of passage for a tax swap. So, we got 3 different ideas here, and one of them needs to be moved on and voted on. So I'm going to make a motion in accordance with my just stated position that we allocate 2 additional DA positions, 4 additional sheriff patrol positions for an approximate total shortfall of 2.712700. That we allocate against that shortfall 1.317749 million from the Timber Reserve Fund, 500,000 from ARP, and 894,951 from timber, and those numbers might fudge around just a little bit. And that will be my motion. I'm looking for a second.
For discussion, yes.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for discussion.
I want to hear the
Can
accurate.
you repeat the number from the Forest Reserve?
1.317749. Is that correct?
Well,
There's a little bit more.
it was
in there than that.
1,487,394.65 yesterday.
Okay, well, I had a little bit of a bad number, so that's why I gave my caveat at the end of my motion.
So you want to, the intent is to clean out the Forest Reserve Fund?
That's correct.
Okay, so we can base it on that. Got it.
Discussion.
I'm waiting for numbers. I'm gonna take a 5-minute break.
Sure.
While we're
5-minute
doing that.
recess.
And at 11, I have a phone call with the U.S. Forest Service about not shutting down the dunes and wiping out our Riley Ranch.
We did learn yesterday that the permit was issued for the
Good. I didn't know that yet. That's a plus. Except that biological diversity is going after us hammer and tongs. What are we doing?
All right, the recording has resumed. Thank you for that break. So, we have a motion. And the motion is needing a second.
Got a second.
You have one.
Second.
Bob seconded it.
Bob, oh yeah, that's right, Bob did second
For discussion, yeah.
And now
So
we need to get the
discussion-
numbers from Megan.
Yep,
So I think everything else, all the other numbers have been said multiple times. The final number that would come out of the regular forestry fund would be $749,054.
all right. $749,750,000
And the forest reserve fund is what?
would be depleted.
I know, but what is it?
1487400.
Oh, I had 399.65, so you rounded.
In budget, there's no change.
Okay. And then the balance is ARP?
500,000 even from A.
500, okay. For a total of?
Gonna be around 2,000,008. 2,000,007. Off the top of my head.
2,736,454. But I would like to point out that the 4 patrol people, that's most likely a round number, not an exact number, so
Right,
we will adjust. If we do go forward with this option, we would adjust out of the forestry, regular forestry fund.
okay,
So we went up, from this morning, we went up 800,000,
yes,
roughly, a little more.
by adding the 2 DAs and the 4 patrols.
Ready to vote?
Okay, no, I'm not ready for a vote because there's still some unheard comment. There is, we have concerned citizen online. Can we unmute them, please? And there we go, concerned citizen, you're live.
Looked like you were talking. It's,
No,
it's not coming
that's
through.
the Owen making noise.
Oh, that's Bobby. then.
That's the feedback from I've got it up so we can hear it.
Concerned citizen, we're looking for your comment. I put a message in the chat a few minutes ago that you would be coming up next. Going once, going twice. And I guess concerned citizen is not there. Is there any other comment in the room? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
All right.
All right.
Motion does not carry on a vote of 2-1.
I'll just repeat my motion. Do I have to say the whole thing again, or can you copy it from?
I'll make it up.
Okay.
Oh, my. How often does that happen?
I've got it back here somewhere.
She has it all written down.
So
Everybody dies for
Commissioner,
lack of a second.
Commissioner Sweet has tendered a motion that is apparently, as
Has
he
no
said,
second.
dying for lack of a second.
Okay. So what I said was, we fund until the end of the year at what we currently have with the cuts.
fiscal or calendar?
calendar. And then we put on an advisory vote, which a taxing district would be far easier to implement, but we would need to explain to people what they're voting on and how long it would take to implement, et cetera, et cetera. And we could also put on Commissioner Taylor's proposition about a sales tax of X amount. I assume you're still on 2%.
Yes.
Anyway, that would be later determined depending on how much additional information on how much that would raise.
Given the outturn of the other two votes, or proposals, I'm inclined to support this, but I really don't know quite what this means in terms of dollars. Can we postpone the vote on that until?
So we were at
Finance
1908,
officer has-
700 as a balance. And we would have to take it out of the reserve and ARP, et cetera.
I'd like to see those numbers before
Yeah,
we hold an official
we'll wait
vote.
on the numbers and make it.
Well, I don't know when we can next meet.
Or-
Both Bob and I are gonna be on vacation next week, so it'll be sometime after that.
You wanna wait till then, or you wanna take a short, oh, yeah.
You
We-
have,
We have
20
22 minutes.
So you're asking to divide the cost of one pod in the jail basically in half for half the year, right?
We would fully fund the second pod for half a year,
Okay,
not
and
dividing the baby in half here.
So,
I'm talking numbers.
I gotcha. Then we will have to have a supplemental budget to decide whether we're gonna terminate or whether we're gonna fully fund the second half of
I'm
the year.
just trying to clarify the numbers here, so I can let you know
Let her
if I'm
ask the
able
question.
to run those on
Okay.
the fly.
All righty. I know it's putting a lot of pressure on you to figure out right now, and
I can get, assuming you have a cost of the pod handy.
before,
I mean, it's not gonna be exact right now. I can get pretty close and then,
before we expend much energy running down that track, I'd like to ask Commissioner Main if he might consider amending his motion, which actually hasn't been formed into a motion yet, but concept into, rather than continuing to fund through the calendar year, if we might reach a compromise and actually fund through the fiscal year, so that this removes the concern on the part of employees of being laid off in the dead of winter. It extends the time in which we can continue to potentially come up with other and additional solutions to some of our fiscal woes. And it just seems like the right thing to me. Would you be willing to consider incorporating that into your motion?
I'm tending to like that. Yeah, it's a lot easier to calculate.
And manage.
Yeah, but, okay, I would modify my motion to include the entire year, fiscal year, like fishing, yes, fisk. As my Norwegians say, fisk instead of fish, but anyway, that would fund it through the year, but we would have to, well, I guess then, we also want to have an advisory vote on each with explanations developed
Mm-hmm.
internally on how to explain all that,
Mm-hmm.
and then see where we're at.
Mhm.
And then by then, we have nothing left but the forest fund that contributes by the end of next June.
Mhm.
We have nothing but the forest fund. We don't have the forest reserve fund, and we don't have the ARP anymore. So that's, hopefully that thing passes in the spring, one of them.
Can we,
It's really,
Is this the whole motion?
we're still gambling. Huh?
In the whole motion?
What? I didn't hear you.
I said this is in the whole motion? We're still going with?
No, I was
the
just
motion?
going on and on and on, rambling about the
Okay,
ramifications of the
Can
whole
we
thing.
codify that into a
All
motion,
right.
Commissioner?
can we just do the numbers on it? It's still gonna be, I don't know how to vote on it if we don't have the numbers.
So
And I think
we
it's
have a
gonna take-
balance of, right now, with the cuts we made yesterday, we're at 1,908,700, right?
Correct, but
All right.
I have to add in the two DA positions. Let me do that real quick, please.
Oh, we're adding back in or what?
If you want, if that was part of your motion,
Now, how,
fund
well, let me
those.
back up here. Does the two extra ones that you voluntarily eliminated some while ago? Mr. Frazier?
Well, we had two budgeted, extra, the seventh and eighth. We were having troubles filling the seventh position, although I started getting applications for it.
Uh-huh,
We didn't hire because we didn't know what this process was.
okay.
The eighth position you budgeted for and said, no, I could not fill it. Okay. So those are the two positions. Those are the two positions.
All right. Okay, that's included for me.
Okay.
All right,
Mhm.
so we are including those two positions.
yeah.
Mhm.
Bear in mind, though, we hope like hell this November that one of those at least is approved to go on to the following May election.
So now we're at 2,200,000.
And we're gambling. Go ahead.
We're at 2,213,454.
How much in 54? What?
454.
Oh, 454. Okay,
2 million again, I'm sorry.
so we're down 500K from previous motion. But we're still up from where we were before by
The reason we're down.
3
from-
million.
The reason
Or
we're down by
300,000.
that 500,000 is because we have not
Four, yeah,
added in the 4 deputy
Right.
positions, correct?
yeah, correct. So we're still up about 300,000, a little over. By
And how are we gonna fill that?
305. Well, we're gonna take the trust fund.
No, we're not.
The reserve fund.
I'm sorry, I keep saying that. For the last few weeks, I say that. The Forest Reserve Fund of 1,4 whatever leaves us with 8 something, almost 8.
726,054.
Okay. And how much we have in the ARP? Exactly, do we know?
It,
Because we still have a pipeline to fix.
yeah. About 1.3 to 1.4, depending on, there's
So it
some
can't go
open
above
projects right
s-
now and depending on if
So
people
it can't
spend
go
all of them.
more than 600,000 or 700,000 for the fix.
I would say 5.
Yeah.
All? What do you think it's gonna take to?
That pipeline site has already been estimated by Northwest Natural, somewhere in the 2.1 to 2.5 million. That's their estimate, and that's from and that's to do a directional drill down deep.
I also would like to point out from HR point of view that we're talking about adding positions that would face a very real likelihood of layoffs in a year's time. So I just want the board to be aware that the risk involved in doing that. Funding positions to be filled only to, in a year from now, if there is no solution, to have to eliminate those positions. It seems like we'd be going through some unnecessary HR steps.
Hire and let go.
I would say from my perspective of lawyers, given the lawyer shortage in Oregon, I don't think if I had to lay off a lawyer, they'd have very much trouble finding work. So in terms of long-term unemployment, I don't think that's that big of an issue for us, but it will be for these guys.
It's,
Is there any chance so that you could hire two more with their knowing our situation? So is that,
Well, now's the time to find out, because we have, people graduated, and that's why I was asking, because I had a couple, 3 people that applied that, looked pretty good, by bar, started as a law clerk in office. We can see,
okay?
if I can't find them, you're not out the money.
All right, so
we lost some numbers here. It was too much discussion.
all right, so perhaps it would be appropriate to just restate your clarified motion, Commissioner Maine.
Oh, my.
Sorry.
Actually, Paul's not gonna like this, but we go with what we cut yesterday. And our balance would be 1,908,700. And we fund that through reserve and about a little over, what, a little less than 500 from ERP, but we're gambling that our repair for the pipeline is not gonna be so much. Our roadmaster over there is going 2 mil from Northwest Natural, and I don't know what we do. Just shut off the valve and say, Roseburg Forest Products, you don't have any more gas after you build a $50 million dryer. It's not real cool either.
So Commissioner Maine, if I understand your motion correctly, it is to fund at,
Well, let's back up here. Even with the ARP, we don't have enough fund money in that fund to even pay for the repair in the first place.
no, we don't. We're gonna have to get some other participation to accomplish that.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen otherwise.
Yep, that's right.
So we go reserve fund and ARP, and that's it.
So your motion is to take the 1.908700 shortfall, fund it with 1.487 and something out of timber reserve, and the balance of around 421,000 out of ARP.
Correct?
That's your motion. I
Yes,
will
sir.
second that motion.
All right.
Any further discussion on the motion on the table?
And then we'll have to have more discussions in December. We'll be elated or we won't.
I see no discussion on the motion.
So we all of us in this room need to go out and beat the bushes and tell people what's going on. And this is going to be either one, no matter what, on these 2 votes, advisory, are dedicated for SO, includes the jail and dispatch and animal control and civil, all that stuff, and the DA's office.
Well, I beg to differ, that's not entirely accurate.
Why?
It's not, well, because the tax swap is not dedicated entirely to the law enforcement and justice.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not.
All right.
It goes to the general fund with
I
stipulation
was thinking the other one.
for an absolute minimum jail capacity and an absolute minimum number of sheriff patrols and an absolute minimum number of district
Yeah,
attorneys.
we have to be totally honest with them if
Yep.
they are positive on a sales tax that
Yep.
the typical savings that for a residence in Coos County is about $188 at 2%. Well,
Okay.
$8 times 174,000 divided by 1,000 is about $188.
Right. So,
But they still have all the other tax bill. Megan has to work that one out.
okay, last call for any comments. I see no hands up online. I see no hands up in the room. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
There you go, 2-1. We have a solution to get us through the fiscal year.
Tried to cut the baby down the middle here.
Thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for the instructive comments that have been tendered.
Megan has a question.
Megan, yes ma'am.
So it's not really a question, it's just a comment. I just want to let you know what the next steps are going to be. I will put all of this into a supplemental budget document. I have to do some publications before it could be adopted by you guys in July. So that's kind of the next steps of what
Okay.
happens.
Okay,
Okay?
very good. Thank you all. We're adjourned.
And I gotta run.